Welcome to Porch Time with Ed. You know, there's a lot of things in the hunting community that a lot of people have lost. One of those things is the ability to just sit around and talk about hunting, share ideas, share thoughts, and share time age old wisdom and scientific knowledge. A lot has happened in deer hunting since I began. In the last 45 years, we've went from just thinking deer grew an antler point every year and total misunderstanding of scrapes, rubs. We knew what they were made by, but we really didn't understand them. We also didn't understand the home ranges of deer very well. We didn't understand the rut very well. And we didn't understand what deer actually need and what hunters need to do to make their hunting better. You know, there's a lot of so-called experts in the field. There are. And you can go watch them. And, we have a busy society, and it's hard to sit around and share 15 or 20 minutes with somebody. Unless it's super duper exciting. And that's what's mattered today with, I think, a lot of our hunters. They need instant knowledge, instant gratification. They can't spend more than 5 minutes just enjoying the topic of hunting. They can't. That's just the way that they're wired today. Unfortunately, deer aren't wired that way. Hunting's not made that way. And it takes time to really become an efficient, good hunter. One that doesn't struggle so much. And everybody's going to say, well, it's your property, it's where you hunt, all the negatives, this, that, and the other thing. You don't understand where I'm at. Believe it or not, most of us that have gotten to the point where I'm at, that has a handful or 5 or 10 animals they're willing to kill, got goals, got property, whoa, it's getting windy out here. They don't understand that we all started in the same way that they did. A little bit more difficult circumstances. And I've said it before, I came from a time in the whitetail hunting world where our county had just I started hunting when our county just started getting whitetail deer, period, here in Indiana. North central Indiana was the last place to get whitetail deer. They released them in southern Indiana and they released them way up north. So in order to hunt, we had to jump in the trucks and drive down south, which that was too far for us, or drive up north 75 or 100 miles. That's the way it was. And people today don't understand that just seeing a deer track made your heart jump. Finding a scrape and some rubs was tremendous. Oh, there's a bee. Good news. Now, today, everybody wants dozens of deer and they want their hit list this long and they need to name all their bucks. I still to this day don't name my bucks because they're just buck deer, special or not. They come and go. I've seen some of my top target bucks end up on the front end of a minivan while mom's texting, driving to the soccer match. Or while some dude's flooring it to work, doing 70 right by the woods. It happens. I've seen EHD kill deer. I've seen deer get stuck in fences, not know it for weeks, and go out and their carcasses hanging there. I've seen, unfortunately, what happens when poachers shoot deer and cut their heads off and leave them next to the road. I've seen it all. I've seen what dry years do to bucks and deer and fawns. I've seen what excessively wet years do. And there's a scientific base for almost everything in the whitetail world now. Most of the myth and folklore are gone. And really, the myth and folklore was fun, but it misled a lot of us older hunters because we were getting told stuff that just necessarily wasn't true. And when you start hunting by those things, it affects the way you hunt and the outcome you get. You know, I love when people exchange ideas and circumstance. There are mature deer in almost every area of the whitetail range. Not a lot, but there are, even in heavily hunted areas. It's odd the minute some guy goes out and kills a 4.5 or 5.5 year old monster buck in an area that's not renowned for it, he automatically had to be doing something wrong. Most of the time, I look at it this other way. He figured something out, found a place where he was at, and he did something right, or was just lucky in the right spot. It happens. It happens all the time. Because back when we started, it was just luck that you got to see a whitetail deer. If you killed a deer, dude, you rolled craps 5 times in a row. That was the odds. The first year I deer hunted, it was just a little over 14,000 bucks killed. That's all we could kill too. We couldn't even kill does. Then the next year, I killed a buck, and we killed right at 16,500 bucks statewide, and there was over 450,000 hunters in my state. That speaks to how tough the odds were. Any buck was a good buck, and that's why you'll never see me put somebody down. And you need to start thinking before you say something, because you don't know what stage in life that hunter is, where they hunt, or how much time they have, or how much experience. If they're going to show up and just shoot little deer every year and it makes them happy, good. Young deer, good. Meat deer, good. Trophy hunt, it's got to be a 6 year old 170 incher, good for you. For me, I've been all the way up and down that trail, and now it has to be at least 4.5 years old. A 3.5 year old with a monster rack might get himself shot. But I like mature, big bodied deer. And around here, young deer don't get over 200 pounds field dressed at all. They'll push the 180 marks at 3.5, 190 if they're lucky, but that's it. Once you start killing those bucks that weigh in at 210, 220, 230, now you're into the old boys, because now they're growed up. They're no longer transferring all that to their bones and growth. They're filling out muscular, and whatever rack they get, they get. I've seen some with not very good racks. There's big old bully bucks with messed up racks, or smaller racks with a lot of mass, and that's just him. A monster buck is a rare thing. Most bucks are lucky to make 140 inches in old age. It's the truth. And I love it when a guy, oh, you got to let that buck, they got to let that 5 pointer or 6 pointer go to 7.5. Or maybe I do, maybe I don't. Because chances are he's just going to be an average buck even at maturity. And that's where the hunt begins for me. Pitting this brain, this desire, against those odds with an older buck that knows the woods, knows the seasons, and knows how to avoid hunters. That's what I enjoy. There's sometimes back in the past that it's taken me a good part of the season. But here recently, to get one of my top 5 bucks or so that's available to me, it's gotten to where I found a sweet spot, a window. And unless he's showing up way early in October, I'll wait and I'll go after him when he's most vulnerable. And for me, that's from about the 24th, 25th of October, depending on the weather. Yeah, weather has a lot to do with how much they move. Because if it's super duper hot, they got the big fur coat on and they're fat and they're not going to move much. Into about November 10th. By November 10th, lockdowns are starting. They're starting to get way off their paths. Anything can happen, anything can show up. But then you're just gambling. You're just gambling. He may or may not be in his mile home range. This is one of those times where he may be down the creek 4 or 5 miles, 2 miles over here, because they start picking up does, and the next doe they pick up that's hot may lead them further away. That's why having lots of healthy does on your property is way smarter than trying to cater to one or two big bucks. You keep trying to cater to them and knocking off the does, they're going to leave you sooner than later. If you have a bunch of nice, healthy does, not too many for the property, but a bunch, and he's right there and that's part of his home range, he's likely to spend a heck of a lot more time where you hunt because you've got the majority of the good old girls that got that little bitty 400, 500 yard home range most of the year, except in winter when everything packs up and goes out in the middle of a cornfield. And you can cater to those deer all you want, but they're going to herd up in the northern part of the United States where it's snow and it freezes, the crops leave, and they're going to likely go to the sloppiest ag crop field that exists. They are. That's why you see 50, 60, 80 deer standing in a corn stubble field somewhere, because that's where the carbohydrates are. And, those deer are used to eating corn. They're not going to die with a belly full of corn. They've been eating it their whole life. See, that's where the myth is. If you're hunting deer in an area that has no corn and you go out in the winter and you pour 500 pounds of corn on the ground, you might kill them. They're not used to it. But these deer, especially here in the corn belt of the Midwest, eat corn every day. Tip number one, in the winter, your greens are no good anymore. They're not. Once they start getting burnt, they die. The deer are after carbohydrates. So if you've got something planted that's high in carbohydrates, they'll stay there as long as you've got some, or they'll go to the next best carbohydrate source. And acorns are a great source of food. And if you had a huge acorn mass deer, that'll keep them around longer too. But once they herd up and disperse, they herd up and disperse. It's just the way it is. So, do the best you can, cross your fingers, hope, but you'll never keep them all on your place. That's a pipe dream. And unless you have a couple thousand acres, you're probably not going to get that done. Do the best you can. And if you can't even plant food plots and stuff, that's where your game changes. And that's what I was getting to. Years ago, I started off on public land, crowded public land, hunting public deer about, I don't know, 44, 45 years ago, 50. I don't know, it's somewhere in there. But let's call it 45 years ago. And there were very few deer and lots of hunters. And we had to drive, like I said, 75 or 100 miles. And as a young man, we were making that trip every couple days. What we had to do to have at least an inkling of a chance to get a whitetail. We weren't like a lot of these states that still had a strong herd. So my point is, if you're stuck on private ground, I understand. If you have small property, I understand. If you have 50 or 100 acres, I understand. Got a 100-acre farm over here. That's what our home farm is. We do the best we can with it. When we hunt, we still hunt public land in October because we don't want to burn out our property in early October. We go to public land, and we have a lot of success on public land. We do. There's a lot more deer now, but there's also a bigger push for hunters on public land now. Unfortunately, hunters are their worst enemy, and farmers have and landowners have figured out that cash makes the world go round. So you've got everybody competing and leasing against one another, and it's knocked out thousands and thousands of hunters completely out of the game, and it's taken tens of thousands of other hunters and put them on very small properties or on public land. And this year I'll give you some public land tips that might help you. You might be surprised at what you can get off of public land, but keep a realistic expectation of what you can get off of public land in your area, in your state. Too many guys go out even on their own land and have unrealistic expectations. Or they're just willing to wait 5 or 10 years for one shot at one really gorgeous big buck. And if that's what you're into, good for you. I'm not waiting that long. I'm going to work a little smarter at it and harder in the off season to get that done. The guys that say I out hunt them, I hunt them all the time, I overhunt them, they can't even hold a candle to how many times I go, aren't necessarily the ones who are hunting smarter. Yes, you can't kill a deer off sitting on the couch, but you can surely mess up that deer and the rest of them by going at the wrong time, the wrong place, in the wrong weather. It's all timing and it's all weather. And that's the truth. The where, that's the knowledge of white-tailed deer. That's the scientific part you've got to learn. I'm going to try to help put some of that on you and other things. And a couple so-called experts were poo-pooing me and all you guys that have frost seeded back in February and March. You saw my food plots recently. They can poo-poo me all they want. They're not necessarily food plot experts. They might be biologist experts, but the weather and what you're planting makes all the difference in the world, and how you plant it and where you live. If you live in southern Arkansas or southern Missouri, your planting season isn't necessarily my planting season up in north central Indiana or Missouri's planting season. There's secrets to it, and you need to know how to read the weather a little bit to get by with it. Timing is everything, even in planting food plots or frost seeding. Guys, got any comments? Leave them. Got any questions? Leave them. If you just want to just stop by and listen, that's fine. Thanks for spending some time with me on the porch today. It's 80 degrees and I've worked all day. Have a good day. I'll get you a couple more videos, shorts out or something this week. It's going to be rainy and kind of cold this weather, spring, Indiana. See ya.